everybody, I'm CPCGamer. Welcome to the first in a new series that I look to call Cooking with CPCGamer. Although I should probably point out at this junction that you're not actually cooking with me. I mean, I'm not an active ingredient in any of the recipes, but I am the cook and I'm showing you how it's done. Today, we'll be cooking my favourite recipe. It's an ancient family recipe that meine Großmutter brought over from the old country. Ladies and gentlemen, Mountain Dew cakes. There's actually two steps to this recipe. For step 1, you will need the following ingredients. 8 ounces of butter. That's 2 sticks to you Americans. 1 pound of sugar. 2 cups if you're American. You can use plain old sugar if you so desire, but I prefer to use caster sugar. 1 lemon and 2 limes. In this recipe, I doubled the quantities, but that's my personal choice. 4 eggs. 22 ounces of flour. Why yes, that is a hefty quantity. Too many to photograph in fact. Here's 8 of them to tide you over. 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And this is to offset the limes, much like you do in a margarita or when you're taking shots. Finally, you will need 3/4 cup of Mountain Dew. First of all, stir the butter. Basically, we're shaking it loose, but keeping it solid at the same time. It's important at this point that you do not heat it up, because then it'll turn to liquid and it'll be useless. Next, add the sugar, and stir it vigorously. And once it's finished, it'll look something like this. Next, you need to add the eggs. First of all, you want to check to see whether they're good or not, so pop them into a jug of water. If they sink, they're good to use. What you want to do is put 1 egg into the mixture and give it a stir until it's all gone. Then add the second egg, give it a stir, and so on and so on and so on for the 3rd and 4th eggs. Step 3. Zest 1 lime and half a lemon. Use the finest edge of a cheese grater for this one, or use a zester. Or have your man do it, whatever. When you're done, dump them into the mix and give it a stir. In the UK, it's called creaming, while in America, it's called beating. Either way, use a verb to describe a cruel fight. Moider your mix if you have to. Don't worry if you can't see the zest that you've just put in, however. It'll be more than enough. Add the baking powder and the salt to the flour. Add that mixture to the butter. Now, stir the resulting mixture slowly. Partially so it doesn't throw flour in your face, partially because we're keeping all the air that we have thus far packed into the mixture within the mixture. You'll be left with a mixture that's pretty thick, and normally you wouldn't have anything nearly this thick when you're making cupcakes, but do bear in mind we've got the Mountain Dew and fruit juices to come. Next, add 1/4 cup of the combined juices from the lemon and both limes. Pro tip, if you put the fruits in the microwave for about 5 seconds, you get exponentially more juice out of them. Also, make sure there are no pips in the juice once you've squeezed them. We're not trying to kill anyone here. Well, you might be, but personally speaking, I do not endorse confectionery-based homicide. If you want a surefire way of getting all the nasty stuff out the juice, use a tea strainer. Here's what you'll be left with. Nasty, right? Keep that mess out of your cake. Pro tip number 2. It's dangerous to juice this stuff alone. Protective eyewear is recommended. Once you've stirred in the juice, add the dew. For an optional step, you may wish to add some food colouring. Don't add too much though. The small amount you see here, turn the mixture this delightful colour. Once you've put your delightful additives into the mixture, give it a stir. A really good stir. Like seriously, do it a lot. Also, make sure the mixture is evenly coloured, that no parts have missed out on the Mountain Dew. Spoon the resulting mixture into some cupcake cases. Here, I've used black ones, darker than the gaping void in my body where once I housed my heart. But, you know, you can just use white ones or whatever. It's your call. Put the cakes into the oven. You'll need to preheat it to either gas mark 5, 375 degrees Fahrenheit, or 190 degrees Celsius. Depends on what particular style your oven is. Personally speaking, I put them on the top shelf of the oven and keep them there for somewhere between 18 to 20 minutes. You'll usually be able to smell when they're done. And when they are done, they will look like this. Oh yeah, at this point I'd put the cakes on the dining room table. You won't see it picture-wise, but I made like 4 trays of these things with the mixture in this recipe. If you follow this recipe to the letter, you'll make about 35 cakes. And that's how you make Mountain Dew sponge cakes. But what about the second part of the recipe I mentioned? Find out right after this intermission.
Well, it's easy to yodel, yodel O-T, yodel ladle O-T, yodel ladle O-T. It's easy to yodel, yodel O-T, yodel ladle O-T, yodel O-T.
The second part of the recipe is buttercream, and that uses pretty much all the same ingredients that the cakes did. So much so that I'm not even going to take new pictures of them. Here's what you'll need. 8 ounces of marge. Alternatively, you can use 1 stick of butter if you so desire. 32 ounces of icing sugar, powdered sugar to you Americans, and yes, that is another lethal quantity. You'll need the zest from 1/2 of a lemon and 1 whole lime. You can use whatever was left over from when you made the cakes, or in my case, I just used some new fruits. You also need the juice from 1/2 a lemon and 1 lime, a teaspoon of lemon extract. This is mostly done to taste, so it's not necessary, that one. And 2 tablespoons of Mountain Dew. First of all, you're going to want to allow the cakes to cool. Go cold, ideally. This stops the buttercream from melting when you put it on top. Next, mix the margarine. Just like before, get it airy, but don't melt it. Then, sieve 1/2 of the required sugar into the mixture. As you mix, push it against the side of the bowl, pressing the sugar into the marge so it all sticks together. And keep going until it's creamy looking, kinda like this. Don't worry if it looks unappealing as you're working. Buttercream is a pretty tricky ingredient. To that end, the name buttercream is derived from the Celtic Buttercram, which means witchcraft that you put on top of cakes. True story. Throughout the next sections, just continue mixing and mixing and mixing and pretty much don't stop. Add the zest from both fruits. Don't worry if it goes missing as you're stirring, it's meant to do that, just like the cake batter. And it is at this point that you add the lemon extract. Or don't. I didn't. Then add the dew, then add the colouring. Once you've got everything mixed together, you'll have something that looks like, but does not have the consistency of, Play-Doh. Something like this, in fact. And at this point you'll want to add the rest of the sugar. Again, push it against the side so it all gets mixed together evenly. Next, and this is an important step, replace the batteries in the camera you are using to document this process if you were not a smart cookie and did not charge it overnight. Once you have everything mixed in, you have a thick, creamy mixture that looks something like this. When you have that mixture, you'll want to taste it. If it doesn't make you shudder, then you probably got it right. Next, spoon the cream into a piping bag, or one of these things. What is it, a syringe? I don't know. As I say, I usually have my man do it for me, so I'm not accustomed to these weird things. Pipe the cream out onto the cupcakes. In this case, we put it out into little spirals starting at the outside edge. Making it look like a cupcake is meant to look like, pretty much. That's your goal here. When you've finished, you can add sprinkles if you like. Or jimmies, or hundreds and thousands, whatever you want to call them. Like this. Step 14, question marks. And step 15, profit. The recipe you've seen here makes quite a few cupcakes. As I say, the batch you've seen has made 35, so that's not too shabby. We also had a fair amount of buttercream left over, so we made a few more cakes and put it on top of those too. Another thing, we use standard Mountain Dew for this recipe, but it doesn't stop there. I mean, you're welcome to use Code Red, Distortion, Overdrive, Gamer Fuel, whatever, so long as you swap out the fruits for their corresponding flavour rather than just using lemon and lime all the time. And that's it. That's how to make Mountain Dew cakes. Today's episode was brought to you by the letter E, a staggering bunch of numbers following the letter E, and was, surprisingly, not at all sponsored by Mountain Dew. So until next time, goodbye.